Hey, it's James from Silver Siphon here again. In this video we're going to cover some of the more advanced settings and field mapping in Silver Siphon. So on the services page, this is where you access these settings. Just basically scroll right down the bottom and you've got these couple of tabs here. So in transactions, we've got these items here. So first one, group fees into a single line item each day. That does exactly as it says. So if you were processing several transactions per day, let's say there's 4 lots of 100 transactions, there would also be 4 fees associated with that. Let's say $2 each. If you tick this, instead of getting 8 transactions every day, you'll get the 4 transactions plus a 5th fee item, which is simply all of those fees rolled up into one. So it's a bit easier to reconcile. This is a pretty good idea if you're reconciling all your fees to the same account code. This one, process pending adjustments. You'll probably know if this one applies to you if you're processing pending adjustments. Normally we'll ignore those, otherwise this will bring them in. It's very rare that this feature is actually needed. Always default to the original transaction currency. This one's a bit too complicated to go over in this video, but there's a blog post which I'll link in the comments so that you can see exactly when you should use this. Now, by default, we leave this off. So if your home currency in Stripe is, for example, Australian dollars, even if you process charges in US or British pounds or any other currency, Stripe will actually convert that that charge when you capture it into the Australian dollar equivalent, and then we'll capture that instead of the foreign fee, which means it makes it a hell of a lot easier for bookkeeping because everything's in the one currency. And finally, if you are using Stripe Connect, if you don't know what that is, then you're probably not using it and you can ignore it. But if you are using Stripe Connect, this is where you choose which transactions will import. Normally it's all activity, but some people want to bring in application fees or Stripe charges only. So now we'll jump over to field mapping. Field mapping allows you to bring in extra data that's associated with the charge if you need that information. This is a pretty advanced feature, mostly used to simplify bookkeeping. A good example of when this would be helpful is if you're an Australian company that charge, or any company really, that need to distinguish between onshore and offshore charges to distinguish what tax level they will be taxed at. So the easiest way to do that might be to bring in the card country in Stripe. So for example, in Australia, I know that for any Australian cards, I need to charge 10% GST, but for anyone else, I don't. And in Xero, that means you can set up bank rules to match on country and then reconcile automatically based on that. So the easiest way to do that would be to click into the description and add in the card country into the description. Now, we can only bring in the data that actually exists in Stripe. And the way you can find that out is go back over to Stripe, go to payments, and find an actual transaction that's happened on your account and open it up here. So this is a dummy charge here that I'm going to show you, and I've filled it out with some information. So we can see here it's got an amount, a fee, a date. So all of this is brought in automatically by Silver Siphon. You can see the description there is listed by default, the charge.description. And here's all the card information. So you can actually pull in a bunch of different information from the card itself. Now, metadata is pretty specialized. Most accounts won't have any metadata. It depends on the checkout system that you are using. So if you see some data listed here, that means you can bring that in as well. But for most accounts, this is normally blank. So a common example is like an e-commerce system might have an order ID. So if I wanted to bring in this order ID, I could simply copy that field name there, go into the description, and add a meta key. And it's going to ask me what my key is, so I'm going to put in order ID, hit confirm, and now that's going to be brought in as part of the description. Of course, when you're done, you'll hit save, and that's all there is to field mapping and advanced settings in Silver Siphon.